As chaos swept through the global financial markets, the executives of Barings Bank watched in disbelief. The Kobe earthquake had just struck Japan to its core, and the Nikkei index plummeted, sending waves of fear across the world's stock exchanges. But the Barings Bank executives in London believed they could ride out this storm. Panic a little, but they were certain they would survive it. They had no idea that far away, in a small office in Singapore, Leeson was sitting at his desk with his eyes locked on a screen. On that screen was his secret account, named Account 58. This wasn't just any account, it was a ticking time bomb. Nick knew, without a doubt, that the numbers staring back at him would do more than cause a panic. The bank will collapse. As the markets crumbled around him, Nick wasn't panicking, he was calculating. And as Barings Bank desperately tried to stay afloat, Nick made a decision. On February 23, 1995, he disappeared, fleeing Singapore, leaving behind a note and an account that would soon be discovered. Days later, one of England's oldest and most respected banks was sold for a single pound. It's 1992. Nick Leeson, a young and ambitious trader, steps into Barings Bank, one of the most prestigious financial institutions in the world. At just 25, he was sent to the company's office in Singapore. For a guy like Nick, this was everything, an opportunity to prove himself in the highly competitive world of finance. Nick quickly rises to become the general manager of Barings Futures and Options Office at the Singapore International Monetary Exchange, or SIMEX. With a team of junior traders under his wing, the money was flowing, and Nick's reputation as a rising star was growing fast. But then, a mistake changed everything. One of the junior traders whom Nick was managing had made a crucial mistake. He was managing one of his clients' funds, and instead of buying the futures to a client's name, he sold his position, leading to the clients losing 20,000 sterling pounds. Now this was a rookie mistake. In such an incident, Nick was supposed to report the losses to the headquarters in London, but he knew that if words got out to London, it would be only a matter of time before he found himself looking for another job. So instead of reporting the losses, Nick decided to take a different approach. He opened a secret account and named it Account 58. This was an error account linked to the bank's own funds. He used it to credit the 20,000 sterling pounds to the client's name to cover up for the loss. His plan next was to buy himself some time to trade in more bold positions and use the generated profits to cover up his losses. Once the losses are recovered, he would close the account and never mention its existence to anyone. To everybody back in London, it looked like he was making profits. Nick, the star trader, was thriving, but underneath all of it, a much great financial disaster was brewing. By the end of 1992, the losses his bank took went from £2 million to £4 million. Nick's entire existence was at stake. The £4 million hole that he had in his books ate at him daily. If anyone knew about what he was doing, everything would be over. His bonuses, his wife, the name he had built for himself, everything would be taken from him. The pressure was unbearable. So once again, Nick turned to the one thing he loves doing the most: gambling. Nick went on a wild trading spree, but he wasn't making safe, calculated trades. No, he went all in on the riskiest bets he could find. High risk, high reward. That was his only way out. And luck, this time, luck was on his side. The markets began to move in Nick's favor, and bit by bit, he recovered back the losses. By July 1993, he had done the impossible. Account 58, the secret ticking time bomb, was back to a net zero balance. Nick finally closed it down. For the first time in what felt like forever, Nick could breathe. He was the star trader once again, the genius who everyone at Barings Bank was talking about. And for the first time in 16 long months, Nick could sleep soundly, knowing the storm had passed. But his peace wouldn't last that long. Instead of calling it a day and sticking to a strict risk control procedures, Nick was convinced that he was the smart guy who can definitely beat the market. He had done it once and got away with it. Why don't he do it again? This time though, he was going to go even bigger. The riskier the trade, the bigger the reward. That's how Nick saw it. And with each high stakes bet, he envisioned his name climbing the ranks of Barings Bank's elite. The ultimate payoff, huge bonuses at the end of every quarter. A future where Nick wasn't just a trader, he was a trading legend. So Nick reopened account 58. The account he was once buried was now his secret weapon again, but this time he was going all in. What Nick didn't realize was that the market was about to turn on him, and when it did, it wouldn't just be a bad day, it would be a disaster. By the end of 1994, the secret error account had accumulated a staggering total loss of £208 million. This was not what he had planned for. Nick knew he was leading the bank to an absolute catastrophe. If anybody knew what was going down in his books, this would be the end of his career. So Nick came up with a risky idea that, if done correctly, will definitely close the £208 million gap he had in his books. What was the plan's name? We can call it Operation All or Nothing, in an attempt to save his career and avoid losing all of the status that came with it. Nick invested heavily into what is called a short straddle. He thought it was only a matter of time before he would be in the clear, before he could sweep the losses under the rug and continue his rise as a star trader. Little did he know that this bold move would be the start of the end of England's oldest bank. Now, what exactly is a short straddle? To know what a short straddle is, we first need to know what a call option and a put option are. Let's start with the call option. Imagine you are at a store and you see a cool new phone that costs $500. You are not sure if you want to buy it right now, so you make a deal with the store. You give them $50 and they agree that if you decide to buy the phone in the next month, they will sell it to you for $500. No matter what happens to the price, that $50 is the premium you pay for a call option. You are paying for the right but not the obligation to buy the phone at a set price later. If the price of the phone goes up to $600, you can still buy it for $500, so you win. But if the price drops to $400, you don't have to buy it, you just lose the $50 premium that you paid for the option. On the other side, let's talk about the put option. This works the other way around. Imagine you own that phone, but you are worried its price might drop soon, so you pay the store $50 and make a deal. If the price drops, they have to buy it from you for $500 within the next month. That's a put option. You are paying for the right to sell your phone at a guaranteed price. If the price of the phone drops to $400, you can still sell it for $500, so you win again. If the price goes up to $600, you just keep your phone and lose the $50 premium you paid for the option. So, a call option gives you the right to buy something at a set price, hoping the price will go up. A put option gives you the right to sell something at a set price, hoping the price will go down. Now, let's talk about Nick Leeson and how he used these options to bring down Barings Bank. Nick wasn't just buying or selling one option, he was using a strategy called a short straddle. Here's how that works. Instead of buying these options, he was selling both a call option and a put option at the same time. It's like making two bets, one that the market wouldn't go up too much, the call, and another that it wouldn't go down too much, the put. Nick was betting that the Singapore and Japanese markets would stay stable. If the Nikkei 225 stock index didn't move much, he would keep the money he made from selling these options and everything would be fine. But if the market moved a lot in either direction, Nick would face a huge loss. He was on the hook to cover these options and there was no limit to how much he could lose. Nick Leeson placed his hopes on two markets he believed would remain rock solid, Japan and Singapore. The Japanese market, in particular, was known for its stability. Japan's economy was a powerhouse, even rivaling the United States. To Nick, it seemed unthinkable that such a strong market would collapse in the short term. Despite the enormous risks, Nick had no choice but to dive in. He was anxious, but desperation left him no other option, and once again, the markets seemed to be on his side. Throughout 1993, both the Singapore and Japanese markets held steady, just as Nick had predicted. His risky trades were starting to pay off, and it looked like the high-risk, high-reward rule was playing in his favor. For the second time, Nick was on the verge of doing the impossible. He was so close to recovering the mountain of losses in account 5/8, ready to finally close it down for good and put this nightmare behind him, or so he thought. On January 17th, at 5:46 a.m., everything came crashing down. A devastating earthquake had struck Kobe in Japan. 6,000 people lost their lives, and 45,000 were displaced. But beyond the human tragedy, the financial world was shaken to its core. The Nikkei 225s collapsed in the aftermath. Nick Leeson's carefully crafted plan, the short straddle, turned into a nightmare. The stable markets he was counting on, gone. Instead, they went into a free fall. The put options Nick had sold became a financial black hole as the market nosedived. And the call options, they offered no protection because the market didn't rise. His strategy had completely backfired. The losses snowballed out of control. Every day, Nick's debt skyrocketed with no way to stop the bleeding. Meanwhile, in London, Barings Bank's upper management was worried about the market's downward spiral, but as far as they knew, all their positions were safe. No alarms were raised by the risk management team. They had no idea what was coming. As the Nikkei continued its collapse, Nick's hidden losses spiraled into the hundreds of millions. The truth was about to hit, and it would hit hard. On February 23, 1995, just days before the bank's collapse, Nick left a simple note on his desk saying, "I'm sorry." Then he and his wife fled to Malaysia and later to Germany, where he was finally caught by the authorities. Back at Barings Bank, the management struggled to understand the catastrophe unfolding in front of them, but by then it was too late. Every hour, the losses mounted. First tens of millions, then hundreds of millions. By the time the truth fully emerged, Nick Leeson had racked up an astounding £827 million in hidden losses. It was a financial haul so massive that Barings Bank, an institution that had stood strong for over 230 years, simply couldn't survive. On March 6, 1995, Barings Bank was declared insolvent. £827 million. That's how much Nick Leeson's reckless trading had cost them, more than double the bank's available capital. No bailout could fix this. In the end, Dutch banking giant ING swooped in, acquiring Barings Bank for the symbolic price of £1. One of the oldest and most prestigious financial institutions in the world was was brought down by one man and one disastrous bet.